Hello and welcome to Cracked Open, a podcast guiding you on your journey to becoming a vessel of unconditional love. And this is your host, Beck Milonis, High Priestess, Channel, and Activator. Join me on this series as I share reflections, insights, and channel transmissions from my journey of walking the initiation path. Each episode is a unique transmission containing supportive frequencies to facilitate the deepest healing, activation, and reconnection with your soul. I invite you to open your mind and set the intention to receive this episode into your heart space. Let's go. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode of Cracked Open, a podcast about becoming a vessel of unconditional love. Today is going to be brief. I'm going to try and get this out in a quick and concise manner. I don't want to harp on about this stuff for too long, but I want to talk about the energies, allowing yourself to be affected by the energies versus, or feeling victimized by the energies versus flowing with the energies to have them support you. Guys, when I say the energies, it's funny because if you listen to my stuff, you will probably notice that every single episode I come on here, that's an energy update, and I'm like, holy shit, the energies right now is so intense, which is true. It's not a lie, right? I'm very sensitive and I'm very attuned to these things. So I am speaking truth when I say that they are intense. And also, they're going to keep intensifying, right? So it's not looking like the energies are going to slow down. The astrological elements, the solar flares, the collective energy, all the stuff that's going on, it's not going to slow down anytime soon, right? We are on this ship. We're headed, the rocket ship, headed to the ascension of humanity. Things are just ramping up, right? So we need to firstly accept that, yes, the energies are really fucking intense, okay? Yes, they are. And secondly, that yes, they affect us, particularly if you're like me, and you are very sensitive and you're here to receive these cosmic energies, to receive these downloads, to receive these upgrades, and then transmit them, right? Many of us are here to act as transmitters for these energies, for these galactic energies, for these cosmic energies, these planetary energies, and transmit them through the work that we're here to do. So this episode is really to empower you to move away from victim-based thinking around the energies, like, oh my fucking God, Mercury's retrograde. So I'm going to, get my ass handed to me. I'm just going to go hide in a cave for 5 days, 10 days, however long a retrograde. It's usually longer than that, a month, because there's 7 planets in retrograde and a supermoon this week, and I just can't deal. That's the reality of right now, guys. 7 planets in retrograde this week, and it's a supermoon, right? Blue moon in Pisces, which is my sun sign. So it's really hit me. But there are 2 ways that we can look at this. We can look at it like, this is something outside of me that has control over me, and it's going to knock me over. I don't want to put a stop on what I'm doing, so I'm going to resist it. I'm going to feel tired. I'm going to feel exhausted. I'm going to feel emotional, and I'm going to blame and resent the energies, right? That's one way to look at it. Or we can look at, what are these specific energies inviting me into? What are they really conducive or supportive for? So for instance, Mercury, planet of communication. It's also very logical. It's about structures, right? So when Mercury is in retrograde, it's time to look at taking evaluation, reevaluating like where everything is at in your life and refining, right? Going back, revisiting, refining. When a planet is in retrograde, it's an opportunity for us to refine. So for instance, Venus has been retrograde. You've heard me talking about that one for a little while. And that was an opportunity for us to refine our relationships, refine our connections to others, our intimacy, our how open our heart is, right? The way in which we're interacting with people, the things that are no longer serving, right? So you can understand, like, if you understand each of these planets, and this is simple, right? Just Google it. Just Google it, or find an astrologer that you resonate with who does these energy updates and tells you about what specifically the flavors are, because it becomes very nuanced when there's like, so Venus is in Leo, for instance. So then there's a Leo flavor. So if you're not an astrology person, firstly, I would really recommend like looking into it. Astrology changed my fucking life. It's so helpful and useful to know this stuff. But secondly, there are many great resources of people doing this who are really well versed in understanding it. Check out their stuff. There's a whole heap of them out there, right? and they will give you the download of this is what this energy means. So these astrologers basically have an understanding of how to like read the energy. For me, it's a intuitive thing. So I actually feel the energy before I even know what's up. And then I'm like, oh shit, Venus is in retrograde. That makes sense because XYZ happened and came up in my life, right? So my life is constantly mirroring these energies before I even realize what they are, or collective themes. So, oh, there's this wave of something happening in the collective, and this is coming up for me to address or look at. So some astrologers are intuitive and they read it intuitively, right? And this is like the Mayans were very intuitive. And I'm going to get onto this in a second because I can feel that wanting to come through me in how they read and understood astrology, right? So they very much had this connection to the astrology, to the subtle energies, to the solar flares, to the sun, to the moon. And they were so fucking attuned with such precision that they didn't need to read a chart to understand what energy was where. They could feel it moving in their bodies, right? And it enabled them to flow with those energies and utilize them in a way. So find an astrologer is the first thing that is very good at that, and understand how to read a few key placements in your chart, and then do a transit chart, right? Again, Google this. I'm not here to teach people how to do this. It's not for this podcast. Look at a transit chart and see what specifically is being highlighted, and then you'll get a better sense of what you're being called to focus on, right? So the second way of doing this is to be really empowered by it. So see, okay, Mercury retrograde, 7 planets in retrograde this week. There's a full moon. Full moons are about release. It's a super full moon. So that means it's going to be a lot of release or a big release. Generally, that's not the time for me to be starting new projects. Generally, that's not the time for me to be pushing myself, right? Listen to your bodies when these energies are coming in. Get really attuned to what is my body asking me to do in this moment. Is my body asking me to work, to go, to roll out projects, or does my body really just require slowness, rest, introspection, reflection? Look at the sorts of things that are coming up for you when these planets, when these energies are hitting. Like, what is coming up in my life? What thoughts, what feelings, what emotions are coming up? These planets, these energies can be our greatest teachers, because each planet, each energy brings with it a different frequency, a different area of specialty, as you would say. And like the astrological signs, there are shadow and I suppose healed or like positive elements to each of these planets, right? So every single one of them has a specific flavor that they're here to help you to attune to work with. And so instead of saying, oh my God, I'm just going to ignore this intense energy and dig my head in the sand, bury my head in the sand and avoid because it's too intense for me, start asking, what is this astrological transit? What is this solar flare? What is this moon? What is this, whatever it is bringing up for me? What is it supporting me with, right? Because as these different flavors or energies interact with our own personal chart, our own cosmic makeup, they're going to bring different things up for us. So they're basically illuminating different points on our chart, different things in our daily life for us to gain more evolution, for us to evolve, for us to gain more understanding, for us to see something which we previously didn't see. So for instance, this week is a really good time to illuminate some shit that has been holding us back. And that's not negative. You can see that, like, sorry, I've got something in my throat. It's like hard to swallow right now. Excuse me. You can see that, like, oh my God, Big Daddy Saturn is riding my ass this week, or Mercury's fucking up all my shit and I'm going to get messages from my ex or whatever it is. And you can be victimized by that. Or you could say, this is an opportunity for me to look at certain areas of my life that I don't usually look at, right? And take that invitation. These planets only fuck with us. The energies only fuck with us if we are in resistance to them. We're pushing against them instead of flowing with them. And this is what I really love about the Mayan culture and what I've really been connecting to. I've had some upgrades coming in, and there's a bit of a transmission through this podcast around this of really, really, really being attuned to these energies. So you're so tapped into these energies, you're a transmitter for these energies, and that you're able to pinpoint the subtle nuance, the subtle shift in your psyche, in your spiritual body, in your mental body, in your emotional body, and take that as feedback, right? So we are physical beings. We're made of 80% water. The earth, our earth, is affected by these energies. So what is to say that we are not, right? We're not affected by the moon. We're not affected by solar flares. We're so affected. Not only our cells, our DNA, our like physical atoms, but also our light body. So our energy body takes in this information, even if you're not aware of it, guys, even if you're shut off to this stuff, when there is an influx of solar flares, your energy body is taking in that information. And then it's our job to receive that information and transmit it as something tactical or something that you can understand. So for instance, you receive an upgrade. For me, I receive upgrades and I'm knocked out while I'm receiving them. And it just feels like this big influx of energy, and I might be emotional. I might feel sluggish. Like I have this week, I felt really sluggish. I felt really tired. Things have kind of put pause again for me. And this is my cycle. Like I receive a big download, a big thing. I have to evaluate, okay, what's coming up in this? What do I need to clear to be able to hold this? What does this energy mean? And then it comes through and I understand and I integrate what it means. But as you're receiving it, sometimes you can't pinpoint what that is. So then you want to be victimized by it. You want to be like, well, fuck, like, everything went to shit this week, so I'm going to blame Mercury. And it's like, no, Mercury's giving you subtle messages, right? It's a messenger. Mercury's giving you subtle feedback about what you're focusing on, what your reality is, what's not working, where you can reevaluate, where you can clear something that's not serving you, right? And it's your job to take in that feedback and fucking rest. If you have to rest when there is intense and energetic stuff going on, intense astrological stuff, then rest. It's so important to rest, right? We're so hard on ourselves and we're so focused on do that we don't realize that if we were to take a week to pause with a big astrological dump or a big transit happening or a big, I don't know, solar flare or something like that, then we receive what we need in that resting to then be able to hit the ground running, moving out of that. Hi, beautiful soul. Allow me to interrupt this broadcast for just a second. If you're a soulpreneur on a sacred mission or just someone looking to connect with their soul purpose, their gifts, and their multidimensional self, I have something I am so excited to share with you. The Soul Mission Accelerator is possibly my most groundbreaking and expansive work yet. It contains 12 low-cost, high-potency sacred activations that will have you shifting through old limitations, patterns, karmic loops, and blockages at quantum speeds. These activations will support you with everything you require energetically to anchor in the timeline and reality you desire to create. If that means more soul clients, tribe, opportunities, and abundance, or just to anchor a soul purpose that is fulfilling and effortlessly abundant, you can grab $44 off the total price by using the code CRACKEDOPEN in capital letters in the checkout, or grab each activation individually as they call to your soul. Now let's get back to this episode. There's some really important placements in your chart that you want to be familiar with and look at. If you don't want to go too deep, I really would recommend like getting someone to read your chart and having a printout of your chart and at least understanding and knowing where all the planets are, because it's important. But your sun, your moon, your rising, and your Chiron are really important signs for you to know, because Chiron is your deepest wound, right? So Chiron is your deepest wound. So whenever there is a transit that is on or near your Chiron or highlighting your Chiron, it means that you are going to be forced, or you're going to be given an opportunity rather, to look at your shadow, to look at where is my deepest wounding, where can I address this from a different angle. It's an opportunity, guys, to see something that was unseen. When something is impacting with your sun, that's your identity, that's your main essence, right? So anything about your, like me, who I think I am, who my identity is, how I'm presenting, that is going to come up. When it's your moon, it's your unconscious, right? It's got stuff to do with the mother as well. The moon represents the mother. So when something is influencing your moon sign, or it's conjunct your moon sign, so it's sitting on your moon sign, this is literally, you can do this by eye. If you look at the chart and you're like, okay, cool, this planet is sitting right on my sun, it's sitting right on my moon, it's sitting right on my Chiron, it's sitting right on my rising sign, it's sitting right on my Saturn, whatever it is. You look at, what does that symbol mean? Go down to the bottom, they have like the symbol for Google. What does that symbol mean? Look at the specific element that it's sitting on top, and that will give you a sense of like, what is this bringing up for me? The rising is like how people perceive us, right? Who we're projecting outwards as. So if, for instance, the moon is, there's a super moon that's like bang on your rising sign, it's going to influence like how people are perceiving you. It's going to influence your external projection of who you are. Venus, if it's interacting with where Venus is on your chart, or where Venus, for instance, Venus was in retrograde. So whatever planets Venus is sitting on top of or highlighting is going to be the flavor for you. So for me, Venus was right on my Chiron. She was right on my Chiron, and she was in Leo for a really long time. My Chiron is in Leo, and it was a Leo sun. So you can imagine me looking at that chart. I was like, right, Venus is right on my fucking Chiron. The moon and the sun are in Chiron. In Leo right now. We had like a sun and moon in Leo. And that's where my biggest wound is, right? That is where my biggest fucking wound is. And that's all being highlighted right now. We know that there's some shit. There was also, I think, Lilith, Dark Goddess, was stationed right there with all of that stuff, highlighting all of that stuff for me. And if I'm not mistaken, I could be incorrect, but I think my Lilith was also next to my Chiron, right? So seeing that, it gave me permission to lean back and be like, okay, I know right now, maybe I am not being guided to take action. Maybe right now I am in an introspective phase where I need to look at what is this bringing up for me in regards to my personal relationships, because that's the flavor that Venus brings. My relationships with others. My Leo is the energy of like wanting to be seen, being famous, like being out there, being charismatic. Where is this highlighting? Where let me get the interpretation for you that's clear so you can see how this would all play in together. Where do I have wounding around allowing myself to be seen in my full essence and having those boundaries between self and other, where I'm able to be my full self no matter who I'm around and what I'm doing, right? So that's how I would interpret that. My core wound is the wound of Leo, and I think it's the 7th house, which is most famous people have this wound. I discovered recently, which is about doubting someone's or doubting the capabilities and gifts of self-doubt, right? And not seeing how fucking amazing we are and not being able to express that and show that to others. And ironically, most famous people have that placement because they overcome that wound and therefore they allow themselves to be seen in their magic. These are really talented people, have this, but I'm not saying I'm really talented guy. I'm just saying things like this. If you look into, okay, this Chiron in like Gemini, for instance, what does that mean? What does that mean? You can Google it. It's really simple, right? Having an understanding of this stuff is going to give you an understanding of the flavor of energy you're working with. If you're not super tapped in to be like, I know exactly what is coming up, and this is why I feel shitty this week, right? Because otherwise, we just allow ourselves to feel shitty and there's no purpose. Not that there needs to be a purpose for us in our emotions, we can just be, but it really helps me to weather these storms of these energies when I'm tapping into, okay, so what is happening right now? Is it that I am being shown some stuff that's not comfortable? What's the block? What's the thing that's coming up? Or is it that I'm being asked to pause, to wait, to reflect, to take a break, whatever that is, right? So having an understanding of what these different elements mean, what the energies are doing, really helps you to give yourself permission to rest when you need to rest, to take a break, to stop, to look at specific areas of your life. Like, so if you're not receiving those downloads, you can be like, well, this is my guidance system for what would be really beneficial for me to be looking at right now, for me to be working on. Okay, is it that, there's a Jupiter Venus conjunct something on my, what's money? I think 3rd house, 4th house. I could be wrong. One of them is the money house, right? That's like a lot of money focused energy. So I'm going to focus on my finances. I'm going to reevaluate, and Mercury's there because Mercury is about reevaluating in systems and structures. So all of these things sitting there on that placement are telling me now is time for me to go do my budget. Now is time for me to address how I'm spending money. Now is time for me to focus on my physical body because maybe it's in a house where that's the flavor of the house. So understanding what the houses are really helps and supports you. Again, you don't need to be into astrology to understand this stuff. Some of us are really fucking intuitive. I only got into astrology really deeply a year and a half ago, where I started reading people's charts and I was like, oh, this is like really intuitive how I'm doing this. And then I would like intuitively channel all these things about this person. And then I would cross-reference their chart and be like, wow, that's exactly what I just said, right? So some of us, we are intuitively tuned into these energies, the collective energies, the astrological elements, without needing to understand the astrology. For those of us who struggle with that, the astrology is a really good framework for us to understand the specific flavors. And like I said, the shadow and the light elements of each of those signs, of each of those planets, all of those things are going to give you the flavor of like, what am I working with right now? Right? What am I working with right now? Just want to hit it home one more time before I wrap this episode up. I told you it would be a short one. We can choose to be empowered and see these energies as our greatest teacher, as that they're all here for us, supporting us. And even if it's bringing up some uncomfortable stuff. And for me this week, I felt really tired. I felt really heavy. I felt really agitated. I felt like I'm being filled up and up and up and up, and I want to explode, but I'm not able to get much shit done. Like, we can sit in that and be like, this is so frustrating. Or we could look back at all the times where this has happened for us. And on the other side of that, we had a download and we were able to take action and we were able to move the thing forward, or magic happened, or we felt more clearer, or we had more structure, whatever it is. So we can choose to see them as our greatest teachers, as our helpers, as our fathers and mothers here to support us, and we can tune into them and flow with them and not resist them. Or we can choose to be victimized by them, to blame them, to not take personal responsibility, to not take personal accountability, guys, because I'm really seeing, for me and my audience, there's this big shift into sovereignty, right? Personal responsibility, sovereignty, not blaming things and people and situations and energies outside of us for why we're not going after our dreams, why we can't make things happen, why our desires aren't manifesting, right? Why we're miserable, why we're sick, why we're unhealthy, any of those things, right? Sovereignty is the ability and the willingness to take responsibility for everything that you're creating. I know I say this a lot on here because it's so important. It's such an important part of our message. And even though these things are seemingly outside of us, they are also us, because we're all one energy, right? We are one with all of these planets. We're born and made from stardust. Like, we are in harmony with these planets, with the cosmic energy, with the collective energy, with the moon, with the sun, with all the things. They affect us because they are us. So instead of pushing them away, it's noticing this planet, this sign, this energy is only amplifying and intensifying something that's already within me. And it's an opportunity, right? Like I say all the time, our triggers are our greatest opportunities for growth. So that is my little wisdom drop today. I hope that that serves. Definitely go find someone who you resonate with, who does collective energy updates. I do them occasionally. And don't also take it as like, this so-and-so said that this full moon is all about XYZ, and like those Alex Miles updates of this Jupiter and this is going to bring fortune and fame and extreme purging and whatever. Like, don't take it and then be like, okay, I'm going to be disempowered and give my power away to that because so and so said that this is the energy and therefore I need to be affected by that. Because no, like I said, we all have different makeups, cosmic makeups, so it's going to affect us all differently. We're all in different points of our journey, and energy to me that might make me, like last week I was fucking orgasmic all week, and I know a lot of my friends were in heavy purges, they felt shit, right? So different energies affect us differently. So even though we're tapping into the collective and we're getting that download from someone else who can understand and read those energies, it doesn't always apply, right? So use discernment when you're listening to readings, when you're reading astrology updates, all that sort of thing. Use discernment. What resonates, what doesn't resonate, what in this is helpful to me, what can I take on, and what is not helpful, right? Because again, discernment is so important. Don't just be victimized then by the person who's doing the reading of what the astrology is, but use that as a guide for, if I don't understand astrology, if I can't read my own chart, then what is this person saying might be something that's going on. Because usually these people are tapped in and they understand, or they feel or sense what's happening, and they can give you a perspective. Because sometimes we literally just need to be seen and witnessed in what we're going through to give ourselves permission to lean into it, right? Like, I think it was Monday, Saturday, Sunday, I was not good. I was a mess. On Monday, I realized we had 7 planets in retrograde and a supermoon this week. And then I was like, oh, deep sigh of exhale. I understand why I feel like this now. It makes sense. Not that I'm blaming those planets, but I do tend to get really affected by things like 7 planets in retrograde, right? Like, I do. That's just, it's not a bad thing. It just is, right? Because I'm not allowing myself to be disempowered by it. But it gave me permission to, this week, I have really like lessened my load. I'm not trying to move forward with certain projects. I'm not getting stressed because, lots of clients are not coming in the way that they have been. Like, things like that. I'm like, okay, this is a time and a period for me to just slow down, take care of my human, hang out with my friends, rest, eat. Another thing is, like, I eat a fucking lot when there's intense energies, right? My body has been craving so much food. It's like crazy. And I was like, is this a hormonal thing? Is this a parasite? Like, what's going on? What's going on with my body? And I realized, and I had the download of like, no, literally, when these energies are coming in, your body needs the food to ground you. And also, it's requiring a lot of energy for you to receive the energies and have all these upgrades going on and all these purging and all the things. So listen to your body through these periods as well. Your body will always tell you what's going on. If you're feeling sluggish, your body's telling you to rest. Maybe don't train so hard. If you're feeling emotional, maybe it's time for you to just sit back, be with those emotions, take a break, right? Listen to, if you're needing to sleep more, if you're needing to do things more, whatever it is, because it will flip around and then you'll go back into the previous cycle, the summer, where you're energized again, where you're feeling good. But the more we prolong that rest, that healing, that introspection, the longer we prolong the summer on the other side where we're taking the action. So try and be more cyclical, guys, because we're cyclical beings, whether you're a female or a male. If you're sensitive, you're more than likely very cyclical and you're very tapped into everything that's happening outside of you. That is my message. I think you got the point from what I'm trying to say. I love you all. I hope you're all staying well in these energies. And until the next time, beautiful souls, I love you. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cracked Open. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share with a friend if this episode has served you in any way. For more information about the work that I do or to get in touch with me, read the show notes or head to beckmylonas.com. Until next time, beautiful soul.